Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something pretty fundamental, mastery.
Right. What does it really take to get genuinely good at something?
Exactly, and what keeps people going even after they've, reached the top.
And this whole conversation really got rolling because of Jerry Seinfeld. He's 70, still working hard.
Yeah, someone asked him, David Remnick, I think, why he still grinds away at comedy.
And his answer wasn't about, like, money or being famous. He actually said, because the only thing in life that's really worth having is good skill.
Good skill is the greatest possession. That's quite a statement.
It really is. And apparently, this whole idea, or at least how he frames it, came from an old issue of Esquire magazine, something about mastery.
Okay, so this Esquire article, he remembered it having a Zen Buddhist concept.
Yeah, that's how he put it. And he
Yeah.
feels pursuing this mastery, this skill, is what makes life fulfilling.
Kind of the opposite of just thinking wealth equals happiness. He seemed
Yeah.
to imply some wealthy people might be miserable without that skill.
Right. And he connects it directly to his stand-up. He has this fear, almost, of losing his edge,
He said pretty bluntly, if you don't do it a lot, you stink.
which is intense. Now, finding that exact Esquire issue is interesting. Seinfeld thought maybe the 60s,
Uh-huh.
but the one that fits, the one titled Mastery, The Secret Ultimate Fitness, that had Mike Schmidt on the cover, that was May 1987.
87. So Seinfeld was already well established then.
Exactly. So maybe the article didn't spark the initial drive, but gave him a framework, a language for something he already felt deeply.
And the article itself, well, it used a lot of athletic examples.
Yeah, the focus was largely sports.
The principles seem much broader, don't they?
Totally. The writer argued that mastery isn't just for, the super talented or people who start as kids. It's open to anyone willing to commit.
Anyone willing to stay on the path, basically.
Right. And they had this line about the modern world being like a prodigious conspiracy against mastery.
That hits home. All the instant gratification, quick fixes.
Yeah, it pulls you away from that long, slow burn of really learning something deeply. It kind of fosters impatience.
One thing from that Esquire piece that really stood out was the description of learning itself. It wasn't like a smooth upward climb.
No, more like spurts of progress and then plateaus.
Right, these flat periods. And the article said these plateaus aren't bad. They're actually crucial.
That's where the deep learning settles in, apparently. You have to kind of learn to love the plateau or at least accept it.
It's a mindset shift, isn't it? Instead of getting discouraged.
Definitely. And they contrasted this with other approaches, like the dabbler.
The dabbler, okay.
Gets all excited at first, hits a wall, gets discouraged, and jumps to something else.
I think we all know that feeling. Or maybe been that person.
Oh, for sure. Then there's the obsessive. Drives super hard for fast results, ignores the plateaus, and just burns out or gets hurt.
They're pushing too hard, too fast.
Yeah. And the third one was the hacker.
The hacker.
Someone who gets to a certain level, like good enough, and just stays there. Doesn't really practice the hard stuff or fix weaknesses, just wants to maintain.
Okay, dabbler, obsessive, hacker. Recognizing those is pretty useful.
It is. But the mastery path, the article suggested, offers something more sustainable. Like a lifelong pursuit can give you real stability.
Grounding, yeah. In a world that's always changing.
Exactly. Mastery is staying on the path, as they put it. And that path itself provides challenges, comfort, surprises, joy, even.
Another interesting bit was about needing a child's mindset.
Yes. Like kids learning. They're curious, right? They're just in it.
And they don't worry so much about looking silly or making mistakes.
Whereas adults, we get caught up in goals, fear of failure, looking foolish. The article argued your attitude matters more than your age for starting mastery.
That's encouraging. And then they got into muscle memory.
Right, how skills become automatic with enough practice. You don't consciously think about every little step.
Like riding a bike or typing.
Yeah, they called it the habitual behavior system. It operates sort of below conscious thought. Learning is about reprogramming that system through deliberate effort.
And eventually that intense focus you needed at the start.
Yeah.
It kind of fades as the skill gets locked in.
Exactly. Which ties back to Seinfeld's Zen Buddhist concept.
What?
The article mentions Zen in the art of archery.
Okay.
And the paradox there is if you let go of the immediate goal, like hitting the target, and just focus intensely on the process, on the practice.
You often end up achieving more.
That's the idea. It's less about ego and winning, more about the continuous journey of refinement.
And Seinfeld himself practices transcendental meditation, right? To help with focus and energy.
Yeah, it seems like it fits that philosophy of cultivating inner resources for the long haul.
So the Esquire piece also laid out, 4 traits common to masters?
Yeah, 4 things they often share. First, enthusiasm, just genuine passion, drives the long hours.
Makes sense. Second.
Generosity, like a willingness to give everything to their skill, holding nothing back.
Total commitment. Okay, third.
Zonshin. It's a Japanese concept like unbroken concentration or continuous awareness, being fully present and alert consistently.
Not just when you're on, but always attuned.
Kind of like that. They used Ben Hogan in golf as an example of that intense focus. And the fourth trait was playfulness.
Playfulness.
Yeah.
Interesting. Not seriousness.
No, more like a willingness to experiment, take chances, try new things, different from the obsessive's rigid drive or the hacker's complacency.
Okay, enthusiasm, generosity, Zonshin, playfulness. Got it.
And this really brings us nicely to Seinfeld's admiration for Ichiro Suzuki.
Ah, the baseball legend. Seinfeld's a huge baseball fan, and Ichiro's his guy.
And Ichiro is like the embodiment of this mastery concept, especially the dedication part. His childhood training regime. Insane.
Set up by his dad, right? Hours and hours every day.
3.5 hours of drills after school, then batting cages. 360 days a year. Just relentless.
Wow, and that just continued into his pro career. The consistency was unbelievable.
Record hits, 10 straight seasons with 200 hits, .300 average, gold glove. I mean, the stats are staggering.
Someone, was it Mike Cameron, described Ichiro's approach as Kaizen.
Yeah, that continuous improvement philosophy. Never satisfied, always refining.
And Seinfeld said if he could be any athlete, it'd be Ichiro.
It really speaks volumes. Now, Ichiro's path was obviously extreme,
Definitely not for everyone.
but the principle underneath that deep, dedicated practice, that's the universal bit.
There's that funny story about Ichiro not knowing who Tom Brady was.
Right. It just shows his singular focus. Baseball was everything. Nothing else really registered.
And you can see the parallels with Seinfeld's own approach to comedy, can't you?
Absolutely. The sheer amount of practice, like rehearsing a 5-minute TV spot 200 times.
And still performing constantly, even now, that consistency.
And patience. Think about him workshopping a joke for years. That Pop-Tart bit that became the Unfrosted movie, years in the making.
So he sees comedy, like mastery, as this lifelong thing. You accept the ebbs and flows.
Yeah, and he had that analogy about the neural pathways. Like broadband for a skill.
If you stop practicing, it shrinks.
Exactly. You've got to keep using it, keep engaging, or the skill diminishes. Mastery isn't static.
So thinking about all this, what does it mean for you listening?
Well, I think the big takeaway is that mastery isn't some magic talent you're born with. It really is accessible.
If you're willing to put in the time and effort, regardless of where you start.
Right. And just understanding that learning involves those spurts and plateaus, that can be really helpful.
Stops you getting discouraged when progress feels slow.
Yeah, you realize it's part of the natural cycle. It's not failure, it's consolidation time.
And it helps you maybe identify your own tendencies. Are you a bit of a dabbler? Or maybe an obsessive?
For a hacker, content with good enough, just being aware of those patterns is a huge first step.
Towards finding a more sustainable way to learn and improve whatever skill you care about.
And the idea that a long-term pursuit can actually provide grounding, a sense of purpose, that's quite powerful too.
Cultivating that childlike curiosity, being okay with mistakes, and just consistently practicing.
That seems to be the core formula. And looking at Seinfeld and Ichiro, I mean, they're proof it works, right? In wildly different fields.
Extraordinary results from that kind of commitment.
So if we boil it all down, mastery isn't really about innate genius. It's about the journey.
Embracing the plateaus, showing up consistently, bringing enthusiasm.
Generosity of effort, focus, and yeah, even that bit of playfulness.
And the examples of Seinfeld and Ichiro just drive home the power of sticking with it for the long haul.
Absolutely. It's about the process, not just the outcome.
So here's a final thought to mull over. We mentioned that prodigious conspiracy against mastery, our distraction-filled world.
Yeah, the constant pull towards the new, the easy, the instant.
So considering that, what's maybe one small, consistent action you could commit to, starting today, towards developing mastery in something that genuinely interests you?
And thinking longer term. What might the real benefits be for you of just staying on the path?